This episode of our podcast is brought to you by Duliban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage for your Tesla, give Duliban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit their website at dulibaninsurance.com/Tesla. Hey everyone, it's time for the Tesla Owners Online Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Page. Joining me this evening are our usual hosts, Ian Pavelko and Eric Camacho. Guys, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. Kind of a funny week this week. Not a lot of Tesla news going around. I mean, we do have 3 or 4 articles to talk about, but I thought we would just kind of go over them very quickly and maybe spend a little bit of time before we get to viewer and listener questions and just talk about something that, I mean, obviously it's everybody's lips these days, and I don't think that really gets enough love, is Tesla service and whatever experiences have been with Tesla service. So for those of you who might be new to the podcast or coming to the channel for the first time, you may have questions about Tesla service. Well, we're going to talk about our firsthand experience with it, both good and bad or whatever the case may be, so that it might help you out. So the first thing we want to talk about tonight is just a little bit of Tesla news. There was an article that came out, and this is courtesy by the guys at autocar.co. That's a great website, by the way. By the way, as usual, all of the links for everything we talk about will be in the podcast description, so you guys can go and read it on your own. But anyways, this article came out, and it was kind of interesting because they had an opportunity to talk to some of the Model 3 Tesla engineers, and there's some really interesting stuff that came about from some of this. So I'm just going to gloss over some of the stuff. You guys, like I said, can certainly read it in the article, but they basically said that, in a nutshell, that most manufacturers these days spend most of their time developing a platform or an architecture, but when it came to the Tesla Model 3 design, they started with a first principles idea, which is basically start over from scratch. Tesla is one of these companies, they're not one to sit still, right? They're always working on stuff. So basically they took whatever 5 or 6 years worth of experience building the S and the X, well, less the X, more the S, and basically threw it all into the Model 3. So there's a lot of stuff that came out of this. So we know how great the Model 3 is, but until we talk about some of this stuff, you probably won't really appreciate how really good it really is. The first point that they started with was tire design, believe it or not. So Tesla was working with several different manufacturers of tires in order to get the tread patterns right, the compounds right. The development of the Model 3 started in 2015, but they spent something like 3 years developing these tires. So they say that the bulk of the mass of an EV is usually located lower than an ICE-powered car. We know that because that's where the battery is really low. And as a result, there's less vertical force buildup through the outside pair of tires to generate grip when they corner. Now, Ian can certainly speak to some of this stuff because he's a tire expert. So to tackle that, they said that Tesla focused on tread stiffness, developing new compounds to deliver the desired combination of cornering grip and low rolling resistance. Low rolling resistance is pretty common in the EV world these days. Everybody's developing new tires for that. And we also know, of course, that the tires are also filled with a sound-absorbing foam on where the tread pattern is on the inside of the tire to help suppress the noise. They also go on to say, and I'll bring up some, I got some pictures here that I pulled up from the article. Here we go. They also say that each rear wheel has 6 degrees of freedom. So there's 5 links. So if you've ever looked at the back of the Model 3, you'll see all these different bars and stuff. So it's a multi-link suspension. So there's 5 links and 1 damper similar to a double wishbone. But the links have been split to give better control over the forces transmitted through the tire's contact patch. There's another picture here of some of the other stuff that's going on. The Tesla also developed sacrificial links. So they're designed to snap the front wheel, and suspension takes the hit. So that allows the wheel to rotate around a third link, moving the wheel outside of the body and pushing the car, the occupants, and the batteries away from the point of impact. So safety is more than just crumple zones in this point. It's actually part of the suspension system. They also say that the additional motor in the all-wheel drive variant sits on 2 mounts in the V. Here's the picture of it here, if I can bring it up. There you go. So you can see those 2 V's at the top. Where was I here? Yeah. So that's on the subframe, and that motor will pivot backwards into the void in the event of a collision. So quite interesting there. The other interesting stuff too is that the system or the steering mechanism of the Model 3 has full redundancy with separate power feeds taken directly from the high voltage battery, 2 electronic control modules, and 2 inverters providing hot backup if one of them fails. I think part of this is, I think, and I can't confirm this 100%, but obviously down the future when they want to do the robo-taxi thing, a little bit of redundancy on not only the computer part doing the computing, but also the steering is quite critical for this stuff, right?
That's exactly what's going on there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. The other thing, too, was quite interesting, and I didn't know this, but we know that Tesla has actually put 4-piston calipers on the Model 3, but they also designed special piston seals that allows the brake pads after braking, so the actual pistons, to actually retract into the body so that the brake pads never actually touch the rotors unless the car is actually braking. So that cuts the drag and it boosts the available driving range. That I didn't know. I thought that was actually quite fascinating. I don't know of any other EV on the market that actually does that. So a lot of this stuff really, at the end of the day, really boils down to how much more efficient the Model 3 is compared to everything else. They also go on to say that the brake discs themselves have been designed to last for the life of the car, about 150,000 miles. And rust has also been looked after as well. And this is something that's bothering me on the S and the X, because if I wash my car, and literally as soon as I'm done washing the car, you can actually see the rust. It's like Homer Simpson's beard. You know, it just...
Nice.
You can see it happening in front of your eyes. So they've developed some new anti-corrosion techniques to prevent that on the Model 3. So I want to have a discussion about this. What do you guys think? I mean, I think it's quite fascinating how deep the rabbit hole, how deep they went down in the rabbit hole for the design on the Model 3. It's more than just safety. It's more about the systems. It's just they looked at literally every aspect of this car, and then it just gives me, I think personally, it gives an even better appreciation for what the car really is.
Oh yeah, 100%. There was a lot of juicy little tidbits. Of course, I glommed onto all the tire stuff, and it doesn't surprise me in the slightest exactly what they described. The fact that they went with a stiffer tread block for the reasons that they give in order to get to better mitigate the fact that there's not as much weight transfer in that chassis. The other thing too is with an EV, they really chew up tread blocks, period. Not just the Model 3, but anything with an electric motor delivers such an instantaneous torque. That's why you have Goodyear and a couple other companies now that are working on EV specific tires, not just that are, low rolling resistance, that are very efficient, but resist that wear, that instant, like just, tire shredding torque that they produce. So you're going to see a lot of small changes in the types of tread blocks, the types of siping and things like that coming forward. There is a downside to this though, and I know a number of Model 3 owners that live in northern climates who've tried to use both the OEM Michelin MXM4s and the Contis that come stock on the 19-inch. They're not spectacular in the snow. And unfortunately, that's one of the trade-offs. When you make the tread block too stiff, when you lose tread mobility, the trade-off is they're less forgiving on icy and snowy surfaces. So that's why you probably want to switch to a different type of all-season tire if you're getting very light winters. Of course, for anybody who gets a significant amount of snow, well, we don't care because we're going to be putting on a real winter tire anyway. But that's part of what's going on, is because these tires, I mean, they were sort of semi-off-the-shelf designs, but they were heavily tweaked for the Model 3. It's not unusual. It's a specific part number that only Tesla gets. So
it reminds me a lot of the BMW i3. So anybody with an i3 knows they have the very skinny, low-resistant tires, but there's only like 2 manufacturers that make these things. So they tend to be a little bit pricier. So.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show that they spent a lot of time on this. It's funny because the winter tire thing just came up in conversation. I have a neighbor who lives, I don't know, maybe 10 doors down. He's around the corner and stuff, and he always comes over and he says, "Hey, Trev, I'm going to order a Model 3 in about 2 weeks' time." I said, "Well, please use my referral code." But beside that, beside the point, he was asking about winter tires, and I said, because he's just going to order a basic SR Plus, and he was asking, well, what should I do for winter? I said, winter tires, man. Makes all the difference in the world. You'll find the car is going to behave better than any other car you've driven just because of the low center of gravity. Get some good winter tires on that thing, like some Hackapletas or whatever you can get. I mean, nobody really makes a bad winter tire these days anymore. Get a good set of rims on it, and off you go. You're going to love the car in the wintertime. So,
as the one Floridian on the show, I have a question. What is winter?
Yes, of course. I knew you were going to go there.
I know.
I just knew it.
Can I just say though, with all sincerity, Ian's knowledge on stuff like this, I learn something new every time we talk about this stuff on the show. And if I'm learning new things, I know our audience is learning new things, and I am just floored by the depth of knowledge this man has, living over 200 years on this earth. It's just amazing what he's acquired.
Hey, his name is Ian Pavelko, not Dick Clark.
But Dick had more hair than I did. So
You ever see the Far Side cartoon? It's one of my favorites. Suddenly, in front of millions of television viewers, Dick Clark ages 200 years and 30 seconds. I always love that one.
nice.
I miss Gary Larson. He was the best. All right, moving along. We have an article to talk about. This one comes courtesy of our friends at Tesla Roddy. The international, what is it? The international, I can never remember. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Yes, the IIHS. Different body than NHTSA. They are going to, or they have tested as of Wednesday, so today's Thursday, so likely yesterday. They were going to do another independent test, this time of some crash testing on the Model 3. Now, last year, they tested the Model 3 just cursory. I don't think they crash tested it. And they came back with some information saying that they gave it a good rating. Here's the article, by the way. And this is the tweet they sent out. The 2018 Tesla Model 3 earns a good rating for its standard LED reflector headlights for models built after June 2018. Previous models earned an acceptable rating. That was about the only fault they could find with the car from a design standpoint. Now, we do know that Tesla's redesigned some of the headlights. They've redesigned lots of parts and stuff, but the headlights, especially when this came out, they certainly redesigned the headlights on the car. So IIHS is the Insurance Institute, and they run a different set of crash tests than NHTSA does. So even though NHTSA gives them a 5-star, safety rating and stuff, the insurance companies look at this as well. Now, this is different because the cars are not supplied by Tesla, in my understanding. They actually go out and buy the car, and they test it on their own. So hopefully sometime in the next few months, we'll be able to see exactly what the crash rating is on this car. If it's below subpar or whatever, you can imagine that Tesla will want that information so they can go back and make any changes and stuff. I mean, Model 3 is still going to be a safe car, irrespective of what they find with this. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this? I mean, I think it's high time. It surprises me that these guys wait so long to do the testing. Like, why do they wait so long instead of doing it right about the same time that NHTSA can get it? Any ideas?
Well, part of it is when the vehicles are made available to them, and also part of it is when they decide to do testing for other vehicles. So it could just very well be that whatever their calendar was scheduled for their test setup, just Model 3 couldn't fit into the same time frame.
Okay. Well, I find it interesting about the headlight thing. We'll talk about that here shortly. So anyways, look forward to that. As soon as we get some more information and the test results of this and stuff, we'll let everybody know. Like I said, there's going to be short show tonight.
I just wanted to throw one thing in there.
Please do.
I don't know if either of you guys got a chance to read that rebuttal letter from Tesla about the whole controversy, of course, with the fact that they claim the Model 3 is the safest car and go through all the data, et cetera. And then, of course, it was, about a year ago that I think they got that admission from NHTSA saying, well, you can't claim this, you can't claim that. And I thought they brought back a brilliant technical rebuttal saying, no, we didn't claim anything out of sorts. Everything we listed is factual. And if you look at the actual hard data, not this arbitrary 5-star system, which of course 40% of the cars are able to achieve now, we have data to back up our claims. So you might want to post a link to that one, Trev. I thought that was really.
I did, and it's worth noting though too is that was from October, I think it was, of last year. So there's this guy that's on the internet. He's a bit of a shady character, I think, in a lot of ways. He's been digging up some dirt and digging up the stuff. He's trying to stir up the pot a little bit. So it's a little bit old news, but I think it's important to note. I mean, if you read the article or the rebuttal letter, there's a nice little subtle dig at the NHTSA at the end. Like Tesla always seems to get their little dig in there at the end. And like, well, we're just trying to do our best. We're hoping that you guys get the rest of the manufacturers to get their acts together. I thought that was brilliant.
Artfully done.
So, anyhow. The next article we want to talk about here is courtesy of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Eric, you want to tell us about what is going on Wawa?
Sure. So Wawa, for those who do not know, is a major kind of like a gas station / convenience store / amazing hangout day club sort of experience. A lot of people like going to Wawas, especially here in Florida since they've opened up. food, smoothies, all kinds of good stuff. Anyway, so Wawa's here in the U.S., and there are 16 locations throughout North America where Wawas are located, where they have Tesla Superchargers at. Now, there's only 4 states that have Wawas with Superchargers. 6 of them are in New Jersey, with the 7th one opening up by December of this year. There's 3 in Delaware, 2 in Virginia, and 5 here in Florida. So the link to the story will be posted in our notes for the video and for the podcast notes. But that being said, Wawa, which is based in Pennsylvania, has gone on the record to say that there are plans in place to double their locations from 16 to 32 by the end of 2020, where they have Wawas and Tesla Superchargers. Now, in most of those locations, they have 8 stalls for Tesla Superchargers. Only 1 location has any electric vehicle charging for anything that's not a Tesla, and that is partnered through, I want to say it's with Electrify America, excuse me.
Yeah, that's the
Electrify America. So they have a station that's actually at one of them, and that's in Pennsylvania, that location does. And those Electrify America stations can do CCS, CHAdeMO, 1772, what have you. So this is kind of a big deal, as Wawas continue to expand, especially here in the Southeast. As more locations do have more Superchargers, that's a great benefit to both the customers, because, again, Superchargers are typically at places where there are things to do while your car is charging. Of course, as we talked about in last week's episode, with V10 coming, you're going to probably be in your car for a bit of it. But if you wanted to be able to run into Wawa, get yourself a bite to eat, head back in your car and watch a Netflix movie for 20 minutes, you're able to do that, which is kind of
make it quick, though, because the charging is getting so fast now, you hardly have time to do anything.
Well, and that's something of interest. So because these Wawas are based on the East Coast, again, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Florida, we don't have V3 supercharging here on the East Coast yet. So I don't know
it's
when
coming.
It's coming. We know that. We just don't know when. And on average, somewhere in the world, a new station opens up, a supercharging station opens up every 18 to 24 hours. So it's pretty significant just how vast this network is becoming. And to have businesses like Wawa partnering with Tesla to offer solutions for their customers is a benefit to both Tesla and, of course, the business. So this is good news for those who are fans of Wawa, who find locations and go, wait a minute, why don't you have a charging station here? It is at least in the plans. Again, we're talking really just a little bit over a year of them doubling up their stations to 32. So
that's awesome.
That's good news.
Yeah, awesome. Great news. More chargers, the better. The more variety is always certainly welcome as well.
Oh, yeah.
The next article we want to talk about is courtesy of our friends at Clean Technica, and written by none other than our good friend Kyle Field. How you doing, Kyle? I haven't seen you in a while. Actually, I met Kyle for the first time at the Model Y reveal event. Really nice guy. Anyhow, so apparently advocates band together to clean up Tesla's supercharging stations. Now, this is kind of a thing that's been going on for some time now. Obviously, when you're traveling and you're going to these superchargers, because they're not really maintained by Tesla in the sense from the actual property itself, that there's a lot of garbage. Like, people are turning into pigs in a lot of ways. I don't know what's going on. And we're running in a situation here that that some of the stations are turning into a little bit of a pigsty. So what's happening here is these people are getting together and they're going around cleaning up some of the stations. Now, we also have here in Ontario, the Tesla Owners Club of Ontario, a few months ago revealed that they have plans on, at least for some pilot locations, of supplying trash cans. Now, they haven't worked out all the details and stuff because, these are on properties and they're trying to figure out, like, who's going to maintain them, who's going to clean them up. But I think it's good in the sense that I think, you know what, let's face it, we're custodians of this thing. We're going around, we're using these systems. I think it's up to us to be responsible about this kind of thing, because I don't want to go to a supercharging station and seeing a diaper or a bag of fast food on the ground. Let me, walk over and if they can put trash cans or whatever. I mean, some of the supercharging stations have windshield washer fluid. I don't know who does that, but I've seen that on occasion.
Yeah.
I think that the trash thing is something that we really do need at these stations. Now, if it's a club thing, I think a club thing is a good start. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, How are we going to deal with this? Because it's kind of a rock in a hard place, right?
So here are the two things that come to mind right as I read this story. The first is there's a new IPCC report coming out, or at least it's been leaking out about some updates to the report from last year. And one of the things in there is land use and our effects on climate change and solutions and all that sort of thing. It is a weird dichotomy that there are Tesla owners or those who are borrowing a Tesla car, Tesla drivers, that are essentially driving a vehicle that is meant to be conscious of the earth, the climate, not using oil and gas and that sort of thing, yet they're polluted, which is sort of counterintuitive to the whole reason why you get a car. But for years and years and years, I've seen people who use their cars as they would a kitchen counter. It's smothered in stuff. I remember in younger days when I was getting rides from friends in school, it's like, hey, just go ahead and move those things, shove them off the seat, put it in the back, whatever it is. I remember comments from people that would get in my car and go, gosh, your car is so clean. I'm like, well, why wouldn't it be? It's a transportation device. It's not a storage resource.
It's personal property. I take care of my stuff.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, it's a $60,000 car that I'm driving. I'm not going to treat it like it's a garbage can. So
one would hope.
It's incumbent, I think, on everyone. If you see someone, if you're at a charging station and someone just kind of haphazardly throws something, either say, hey, bud, do me a favor. Would you mind picking that up and maybe dispose of it properly? Or, maybe keep a bag in your car that you can kind of just dispose of things when you get to your destination, whatever it is. But it's a bad look. It really is a bad look when there's these charging stations that are ideally not at, say, like here in Florida, we have some charging stations on the turnpike. That's a public location, and there are obviously staffers that will go ahead and clear out the trash. But if you're at a Tesla leased space and there's no one else really kind of clean up after yourself, man. Like it's that simple. Clean up after yourself. Don't make a mess of it. If trash can's full, don't put more crap in it. Hold on to it, recycle it, do something. But don't pollute, man.
I'm going to make a point. I'm going to make a point of putting some garbage bags in the front or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if I see that, I'm actually going to pick it up. By the way, I want to mention there is a Twitter account you can follow. The handle is Tesla Adopt, but you can also search for Adopt a Supercharger. Join up, follow them, get involved. If you're a Tesla owner, get involved with these guys. Follow these guys. They're tweeting out some stuff. So, anyways, highly recommended that you follow these guys. I'm actually, I'm going to follow them right now, and I'm going to turn on notifications. Boom, there you go. You got yourself another follower, guys. I love it. So get out there, do your part. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a good look. I mean, if you're going to be part of the EV movement, it's responsible. So don't be an ice hole. Or an EV hole, and don't pollute. Just what Smokey Bear says, right?
No, wasn't it the little owl? I mean, I'm showing my age now, but who was the little guy there?
All I remember is the crying Indian on TV.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the classic.
Who also was not an Indian, by the way.
That's true.
That figures. The 70s. Oh my God.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, good times, baby.
Yeah, it's a bad look. It really is.
Don't go there. Don't go there. All right. Well, any last thoughts before we get into viewer questions?
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
Well, we do have to talk about our service thing, so but please go ahead.
So I did want to say this at the outset of the show, but I'll certainly say it now. Better late than never. After we taped our show last Thursday, August 1st, in the days that followed, there were some tragic events that happened in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. These mass shootings resulted in the loss of over 30 people, some of whom were from Mexico. They were Mexican citizens. Others, of course, were U.S. citizens. And there's been a lot of conversation in the public sphere about the response for this. Not to get political, I'm going to certainly avoid that. I have my own sentiments on the matter. I just know that I've been struggling with this the entire week. And I'm someone who, lived not far from Parkland, Florida. I work near Parkland. I have friends who happen to teach at the school at Stoneman Douglas. So a lot of the stuff, every time it happens, it just becomes very, very hard to kind of focus on other things. Just know I wanted to say that if you are a listener of the show and you happen to be from either of those two municipalities, on behalf of all of us, our thoughts are with you. We wish you strength and courage and bravery and the chance to heal in this time of difficult strife. It's a lot to contend with, and believe me, a lot of people are standing with you, hoping we're able to kind of come through this somehow, some way. So, again, our thoughts and prayers are with you. It's the very least we could do where we're at, but yeah, even in this day, it's enough is enough, and hopefully we can get some change going in that direction very soon.
Appreciate the sentiment, Eric. We certainly feel the same way. I mean, here we're up north of the border. We watch what's going on. It's tragic. Shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have said it any better.
Well, having said that, I thought we'd take some time and just kind of riff a little bit on a subject that obviously is on everybody's lips these days, and that's Tesla service. I want to hear from you guys what your experience has been generally with Tesla service. I'll let you guys begin. I'll talk about, I've had my issues with Tesla service, but I want to hear from you guys. Ian, why don't you go first and tell us a little bit what your experience has been since you've had your car, which is almost a year now, right? It's coming up September.
End of September, so 10 months right now, I guess. It's been amazing so far, I have to say. From the day of delivery, I mean, of course, that was a little stressful with the contract thing, but other than that, it was super smooth. I couldn't have been happier with the staff and how the car itself got delivered. I had my first mobile visit in the winter when the very first big freeze we had, when the charge port froze. And they took it apart and drained it for me because it was water accumulation inside. But at the same time, I mean, the same day that happened, we got the update for the locking pawl to disengage after charging, and I never had an issue with it again. So I was still running with that, let's call it freeze-prone Generation 1 charge port for months. But after that update, I never had a problem with it. But they still had a little tag on file that if there was an updated unit, I would get it.
And your car sits outside and lives outside mostly like mine does, right?
It's 50-50, which makes it worse, right? Because if the car is constantly cold, then generally it sort of repels the moisture. But it's the heating and, it's like the heating and freezing. So it goes in the garage often at night and then goes outside. And then, of course, with freezing rain and snow, whatever all else, it's a perfect test case for charge ports, let's say.
We certainly had Model 3 really went through its first winter for Canada last year, and we certainly had a raft of early issues, teething issues, of course.
So, I mean, just to show you how good the service was, I called, and same day, bang, they came out to have a look at that. And the next time I had a chance to try it was when my spoiler got delivered. So that was pretty cool. Didn't have to do a thing. I just got an email from mobile service, said, hey, we got a spoiler for you. When would you like it? Picked a date. And Eric, the service guy, showed up literally within minutes of the promised time. Came out, put it on the car, and the thing too is, but the Tesla service techs that I've had have been not only technically very knowledgeable and extraordinarily professional, but also very personable. It's nice when you can ask the tech a question. He doesn't mind spending a minute or two showing you what's going on and talking about it, and there's a certain level of enthusiasm. I mean, it's always a joy to work with a tech that clearly enjoys their work. And that's been my experience with them so far. So that just adds a whole extra dimension to the thing. And you always learn something, it's like, oh, okay, little tidbits about various technical aspects of the car. So that was visit number 2. And I mentioned at the same time that, at some point there was supposed to be a new charge port available. And as I showed a couple of weeks back on Twitter, and I think we talked about it on the show.
We did.
Exactly. There's the 3rd revision charge port. So he came back a couple of weeks later to the house. And again, it was a great experience. Here I am, I'm driving home from your place, actually, in Ontario. And at one of the rest stops, I get a text. It's like, hey, it's Eric, the service technician, and I've got your charge port. When are you going to be home? I'm like, well, around 5 o'clock. I'll see you then. So 5 p.m., bang, I'm within minutes of me showing up at the house. White mobile service Tesla Model S shows up, pulls out all the tools, bang, 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 new charge port, and takes the time, to show me what the differences are, explain them, lets me take pictures of the units. I mean, where else do you get this kind of service? And this one was hilarious because the neighbors are all gathering around like, what's going on? And it's like, hey, what do you mean? You have to take your car into a service center? Oh,
you
my God.
plebeian.
That's so 2014. Oh my god,
Yeah.
So I was really hamming it up and having fun with it. But no, I couldn't be happier, And it's same thing when I go down. I've only had to bring the car in once to the service center. That was to have the rear glass replaced.
Oh, right.
And it was the same thing. I mean, I showed up, I was buying another part, I mentioned it, and the tech came out and he said, "Oh, yeah, that's a stress crack, no problem." Scheduled it. 3 weeks later, dropped the car off as promised, got it back. 24 hours later. I mean, seamless. I have nothing but praise for the whole network. It is yet to fail me. It's been great.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. How about you, Eric? You've never really had any issues with your car.
So there have been things that I've noticed about my car, minor things. For example, on the driver's side of my car, in the A-pillar, the inside paneling is sort of warped and distorted. It has been since I got the car.
I mean, the trim piece.
Right, but it obviously doesn't.
Just cosmetic.
Right, it's just cosmetic. It's not a big deal. But I've noticed for a while, and I'm surprised I just now got to doing something. My headlamps, the driver side has on the inner portion of the headlamp, underneath the housing, has a discoloration. There is almost like a yellowish hue to the light. Now I haven't noticed any performance difference. It's just aesthetically it looks pretty bad. It looks like if I had a non-Tesla vehicle that has plastic headlamp covers and that sort of gets cloudy and gross. Yes. It looks like that, but it's only that light and it's underneath the housing. So I decided to, with the new update to the Tesla app, to go in and actually make a service request. So I'm at my desk. I put in the service request. I'm like, what is it? I'm like, it's a lighting issue. I sort of put a brief description of what it is. I submitted. It says mobile, sure. And then next thing you know, it's like, what date do you want? So the earliest they had was for this coming Monday, August 12th, between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. I'm like, perfect. I can leave my office. I can have lunch. It's going to be fine. I submit it. Within 2 minutes of my submitting it, I get a phone call from Tesla, and they're like, hey, we noticed that you made this request. It's for your headlamp. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it's for your driver's license. Yeah, okay. All right, we're gonna get the part ordered. If we don't already have it, we should have it. But if not, we'll have it ordered by Monday. We'll have the tech come over and let's set it up. Probably take about an hour. And so they give me all that information, and I'm like, and this is all within like 5 minutes. It's crazy quick nowadays. So I will give a follow up on our show next week when we're taping on August 15th. As far as my review of that service request, I'm going to see if while he's there, if they can do some other tweaks to the car. Like, hey, can you fix that paneling or, other stuff. It's also trying to think what other stuff I have, but I mean, they're all minor cosmetic things. I mean, there's nothing really major wrong with the car. Oftentimes I don't get software updates as fast as I want to, even though I said, hey, advanced, yeah. I'm on my home Wi-Fi, but those are minor things. But at least the very first thing I want them to check is the lights, the headlight. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
I've had my Model X for just over a year and a half. I have made no bones about any of the issues I've had with the car. I've usually documented them. My experience with the car, even though I've had most of them have been cosmetic. I had some early issues with the car. Passenger side door, window regulator went on the coldest day of the year when I took delivery in 2017, February, in December. And it failed, and the window wouldn't go back up. Very next day, I called Tesla right away. They said, bring it back exactly like the next morning. And they had it fixed for me, so that was great. Other than that, most of the issues I've had have been cosmetic. I'll talk about something else. Remind me, and I'll talk about the door seals situation because there's something I want to talk about there for a second. Most of my issues have been cosmetic. The last thing that I had done that was cosmetic is I had some condensation on the passenger side rear tail light, which is fairly common on S's and X's, and it never bothered me for like the longest time, and I just kind of went, you know what, maybe I should say something about this. So I made a request, and they said, yeah, no problem. Next time you're in, whatever, for part, we'll just swap it. So they certainly did it right when I was waiting. I didn't have to leave the car or anything like that, which was really, really awesome. Now, the last service visit that I just did was 2 days ago, and it had to do with a service bulletin that finally came about and I did a whole video on this, so if you haven't seen it, just watch it. It's the last video that I did. But anyways, So there's a service bulletin that came out because there was been a raft of Model S's and X's built from about 2014 to about sometime in 2019. I don't know where the switchover happened. But anyways, it had to do with the front drive unit on those cars. Under hard acceleration, depending on the height of the suspension, you would get this shuddering and this vibration. And I knew about it as soon as I got the car. I took it into Tesla. I had it documented just on the off chance that if I had an engineering fix or I had an out of warranty situation, they couldn't dock me for it. Just me being proactive. Bjorn Nyland, for example, had his half shafts, which are the drive shafts that come out of the motor go to the wheels. He's had them changed at least twice. Never really fixed the problem. And lo and behold, a service technician that I know sent me the service bulletin and says, look, they have a permanent fix for this. So, okay, I called Tesla. I sent him an email. And I said, oh, by the way, there's a service bulletin. What about it? Like within minutes, I get an email back that says, come in tomorrow. Like not an acknowledgement, just come in tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I came in. Sure enough, they said, yep, no problem. Sign the paperwork. Here's a key for a Model S. Come back later in the day and we'll have the car ready for you. And sure enough, by the end of the day, the car was ready. Of course, I was too far away to go pick up the car, so I waited the next day. Anyways, make a long story short, problem's been fixed. And it's awesome. The car is as smooth as silk, just the way it should have been. Now, why it took Tesla a year to fix this, I don't know. Maybe they had big fish to fry. But thank goodness they finally fixed this issue. Other than that, my service experience with Tesla has always been excellent. I've only had one mobile visit. Most of my other times it's just like, oh, I happen to be in Lawrence. I'll just drop in, whatever the case may be. But I've always been treated very well. Even though they know me, I don't go out of my way, you know who I am. That's not what it is. Everybody treats you really good. Every of the technicians that I've ever spoken to, either physical ones that work in the shop or the ones that have come out for mobile service, enthusiastic. They love their jobs. They work really hard. I've seen turnover at Tesla, but it's never been in the tech department that I've seen. It's always been at the retail level stuff. So I just have to say, so far, I mean, I've never had any accidents. Now, we hear horror stories about Tesla getting parts for fender benders and accidents and that kind of thing, body shop related stuff. But there are issues with both sides of the fence. I have a friend of mine, Rick, who's in Ottawa, and he has a Model X. He bought his at the same time as myself. He had a problem with a Falcon wing door. It was in an accident. I don't remember exactly what the situation is. And he's been waiting for a Falcon wing door replacement for over a month. And they still don't have an ETA on that part. So there are edge cases for everything, but I'm just saying my experience so far has been really good. So I thought it was just important to just spend a little bit of time and just kind of just talk about it and stuff. Now I have to put it in a little bit of contrast because my prior car was a 2015 Lincoln MKC, and let me tell you, I had that thing back at the dealer by my last count no less than 16 times. And
wow.
including the last visit when I went down, they put a new transmission in the car. So you think that a company, I mean, everybody gives Tesla flack, but the thing is that you think a company like Ford has been in business for over 110 years would have their collective you-know-what together. But no car is perfect. But my experience with that service compared to Tesla's service is that even though my Model X has not been into service quite as many times, it's always been frictionless. It's never been stressful. It's never been like, oh, we'll take you home, we'll drive you home. It's always like, here, just take a loaner and go. With Ford, I never got a loaner. It's always like, well, we'll bring the shuttle guy around, we'll drive you home. And then it's, and you're always talking to a desk guy. You're never talking to the actual technician. That's the thing with Tesla typically is if I'm not talking to the desk guy, it's always the technician who's going to work on the car. And I've never seen that before. So there's a level of disconnect with the traditional dealer model. And I'm not knocking the dealer model. It's just what we have to deal with. It's just the way things are. But with Tesla, it's I don't know what it is. It's just there's less of a disconnect in there. So anyways, and the other thing too is, and probably what you guys have experienced, communications, at least with the service aspect, at least for me and obviously for you guys. I don't know if it's since the last software update that they put on the phone or whatever, but response time seems to be pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And I've seen definite improvements in terms of that. Now, one can talk about Tesla's retail level communications, which are quite lacking in a lot of ways. And I think that's a little that's something that Tesla needs to work on, because there's a lot of people that they're obviously ordering all kinds of cars and they're not getting any communications until like the last second, and like now they're caught scrambling trying to deliver the cars, and it's always worse at the end of a quarter because Tesla pushes so hard at the end of the quarter. So that's something they need to smooth out. But I think on the service side of things, we're in pretty good shape outside of the fact that, waiting for parts in really bad cases in terms of accidents and stuff like that. So I just wanted to say that. Now, I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes here, and I don't mean to monopolize the conversation here, but I want to talk about door seals. I did a post.
Do whatever you want.
You know what? I have to talk about door seals because there is one thing that bothers me the most about Tesla cars in their door seals. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody out there, but they are poor. One of the things that bothers me the most, I mean, Tesla's been making the Model S for 7 years now, and one thing that bothers me, it doesn't matter what age of the car, it doesn't matter if it's a brand new one in the showroom or it's 7 years old at 2012.
You're talking about the Model S, right? Because I think
Model S. Did I say something else?
you said X, and I was confused.
No,
It's
I meant Model. I know S and X sound so similar. I'm talking about the Model S. I'll talk about the S and the 3 in a second, or the X and the 3. Model S, they have not fixed the door seals, and one of the things that bothers me the most with the Model S is, doesn't matter how old the car is, but the door seals, it's like the lip is too short. It's like a quarter inch too short, and the door seals always curl under. So, and it's, I watch videos and then I see this door seal like beside on the B pillar, and it's halfway down, it's curled under. I just want to reach through the TV and put my finger in there and go and just like level it back out.
OCD much?
Yeah, it drives me nuts. So anyways, 7 years, they still haven't fixed that problem. Model X door seals don't exhibit that problem, and I have not seen it exhibited on the Model 3. I think the door seals are generally a little bit better on both of those cars than the Model S. The other thing that bothers me is Tesla's use of adhesives to hold the door seals on. On my car, I've had 4 door seals replaced. So one on a Falcon wing door on a bottom lip, and 2 or 3 others, whatever, on the driver's side or the passenger side. I don't know what it is. The adhesive that they use to hold the door seal on eventually dries out. I don't know if it's subpar. I don't know what they're using. But anyways, after a year or so, it tends to dry out, and then it pops off and it sags. Now, typically, they will just put some new adhesive on. I've even patched it myself, but I've had them actually replaced. Now, I've seen other car manufacturers, they tend to use seals that have a little clip built in, and they have holes in the body panel, and they just clip them in. Yes, some of them use adhesives as well, but that's the other thing that bothers me. I happened to look at my wife's car today. She has a brand new Volkswagen Golf. Let me tell you, Volkswagen, they know how to do door seals. And there's been a lot of discussion, of course, on the internet, and it's going to be here in the comment section of our questions here a little bit about what can we do to improve the door seal situation. So I have my own thoughts on that. I did a whole post. I'll try and remember to put a link in the podcast description. You guys can read what I did on there. And I put photographs so you understand what I'm talking about. But I think if there's anything that Tesla needs to improve on their car, is the door seal situation. It still bothers me. They still haven't gotten it right. So if they were to fix that, I think most of my issues as far as the cars are concerned would kind of go out the window. So,
by the way, we now have a title for the show.
Yes.
Paige's Pet Peeves.
Damn you, door seals. All right.
I'm going to throw one more thing on the service pile over there, because it's not technically service, but it's one thing I find extraordinarily bizarre about how Tesla does parts compared to any other dealer. And on the odd occasion that I've had to go in and just buy a loose part, it's this strange antiquated system whereby the person at the service counter will write up the invoice for the part, and then they appear to put a request in to some person in the back half of the building who manages the parts. And more often than not, it seems to be a technician that gets picked to be a gopher. It's as if there's really no parts person in the operation.
It's like going to Victoria's Secret.
Well,
and everybody has the headphones, right? You need underwear. Yeah,
something akin to that, although the time lag that it takes reminds me. Remember, you're an old Canadian, Trev. Remember Consumers Distributors?
Yes, I do.
Remember when you placed your order, you had to write your order on a little piece of paper, and they'd put on one of those vacuum tubes and just go whoop. up
Mhm.
into the ceiling, and it would vanish, and then some guy from the warehouse would show up 20 minutes later with your coffee maker or whatever it was, or it would come out on the conveyor belt. Well, that's what it's like. I mean, I remember, I forget the name of the store. I was in the Bay Area, where I had to buy an adapter to work on Fred's driveway on his garage. But yeah, I sat there for 20 minutes waiting for someone to appear with this little part in their hand. Meanwhile, if the person had written the invoice, it just ran in back to a bin location and grabbed it like any other dealership, I would have been gone in 5 minutes. And the same thing happened when I had to get that piece of rocker trim under the bottom of my Model 3. I stood there, and they were really nice. It's like, can we get you a coffee? Can you do that? Like, no, I just want my part. Did you order it Zimbabwe? Like, where's it coming from?
I will give you an analogous story. During a time that I worked for a company you might have heard of. It's called Apple. So Apple, I know, right? So Apple has this system now where if you're in the team in the sales floor and you get a request from a customer, like, hey, I want to just get this iPod, or I want to get this accessory for my Mac, or whatever it is. Most of the stuff can be found on the floor. You want to get a case or something, it's on the floor. You basically now with your Apple Pay can scan it, pay for it, you're out the door. Which that's a surreal experience on its own for a consumer.
It is.
But bigger ticket items, of course, require someone grabbing it from the back. So the specialist on the floor puts a request in on their mobile device, and then you wait. And then someone like myself, who was on the inventory team, would basically get the request. One of us goes, hey, I got it. And then, you basically go to the thing, you scan it, make sure it matches, and then you run it out. Now, granted, we're faster at this. I mean, I think the longest I ever had someone wait was like 4 minutes because we were scrambling to find where this dang computer had gone to. Mm-hmm. But I mean, 20 minutes is kind of a long time. But even with that being said, more and more companies are sort of parsing out this work responsibility to having someone who just manages inventory. That's their foray. That's the thing that they know is where this part is, if it's been moved, where it is, how many are in the house, et cetera, and they just run and grab it. Now, if the day you were there at that dealership, they had a team of one, and the guy had like 7 different requests from the service guys in the bay, or whatever they were doing, maybe that's why there was a long delay. I don't think he was like running down the street to some nearby parts store and be like, hey,
gotta run down to Pet Boys.
I need to get a TD 127. Do you have that? No, dang it. So. So more and more companies are shifting to that idea.
I think it's important to also mention too, just in case people haven't paying attention, whatever. But if you listen to the last earnings call, Elon did say one of the things that they want to do for service is to be more like a grocery store. They want to send more common parts and have them like on a shelf so they can go and just pick it off the shelf rather than having to order it out of a warehouse or have it shipped up and stuff. So yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That will be nice. And I agree with you 100%, Ian. The last time I went to Tesla service, I decided to go in, not for service. I just wanted a couple of parts. I wanted to buy some new windshield wiper blades and a new cabin filter, and it's exactly what they did. They said, okay, Johnny, can you bring it up? And sure enough, they walked it out of the cage. So anyhow. All right, well, let's take a break. We'll hear from our sponsor. We'll come right back, and we'll start answering some viewer and listener questions. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com, that's spelled FEYNLAB, to see the science behind the self-healing. Check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla. We were meant for each other. All right, well, this is the part of the show where we answer viewer and listener questions. Now, for those of you who don't know where these questions come from, if you're a first-time viewer or listener, we pick them on Twitter, usually the day before or the day of the podcast. So make sure you follow me, Model 3 Owners, on Twitter for a Google form that we publish, and you can send in your questions. So having said that, the first question comes from Wilson. He says, Elon, via tweet and email via Tesla, had mentioned that those who bought full self-driving, also known as FSD, before the end of February would get access to the early access program. That's not an enhanced autopilot. I know that they've enabled the advanced software update setting in the cars, which pushes the latest release build to our cars, but many of us know this isn't EAP. I still haven't received an invite to EAP. I took delivery of my Model 3 in October, and I'm wondering if anyone has actually received an invite triggered by purchasing FSD, or if Tesla has dropped the ball sending out the invites. Will Tesla ever deliver on this promise? My understanding is that getting access to the early access program was for those had bought full self-driving at the time of purchase of the car prior to this whole brouhaha going down. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was kind of one of the things for the early adopters that bought FSD, that they would get access to the early access program as a mulligan or as a thank you. And I'm not aware of anybody personally that's in the enhanced or the early access program. I got to keep that. I got to keep the acronym straight here. I mean, the first rule of EAP is you don't talk about it. So, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, Wilson. To be honest with you, I think there's a bit of a disconnect here as far as understanding is concerned. I'm just kind of going back to what Tesla had said, that people that had bought FSD, not during the price drop or anything like that, but had actually purchased it at the time of the car or prior to this whole thing going down, we get it. So I can't really read here exactly when you bought it as to know as whether you qualify or not. So I don't know. Any thoughts, guys?
I got nothing.
No, I got nothing.
No. Sadly, I'm the same as you, Trev. That's what I would have answered. And then again, it's sort of an educated guess.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, sorry, Wilson. We don't have a definitive answer on that. Again, try Tesla again and see if they can give you a better answer. If I can find out, we'll know. But I do know that the early access program, you have to be invited, and it's done on a per basis. It just kind of shows up. You can't ask for it. So, yes, some people that got FSD were supposed to get this, but I don't know anybody personally who has who's been invited to that. All right, so next question comes from Elias. He says, why is Tesla not using mechanisms like iRobot to charge its vehicles out at the supercharger? Thus, the Teslas could park and charge themselves without expensive snake charger. Well, first of all, I'm going to assume that you're thinking about a robot that would go underneath the car and do some kind of inductive charging, maybe? I think there's too many losses with that.
Yeah.
Just like Tesla did a few years ago when they did the demonstration of the battery swap thing. Turns out people didn't want to pay. They want free supercharging, and they want convenience to plug in and plug out. So that's what won. The snake charger thing, yeah, they showed it a few years ago, but ever since then it's been really quiet. And, of course, the robot taxi thing is still not here. So I think this kind of thing will probably play out a little bit more, maybe in the next couple of years. I don't think it's going to happen by the end of this year, but in the next couple of years, once the robotaxi fleet actually comes out or they start working on it, they may start deploying it much like they did with V3, just a few stations to test to start with and kind of go from there. So good question. We don't have the exact answer on that, but I think that the automated charging thing is definitely something they have to do in some shape or form. What form that will take, we have no idea at this point. So, next question comes from Matt. He says, hey guys, would you consider soundproofing your Model 3? Would you have a professional soundproof or buy the strips and do it yourself? So I think Matt is asking one of two questions here. So there are people that are very much into audio in cars, and they will strip out the interior and put something what's called Dynamat. That's a North American brand. In the car, which is a soundproofing. It's a thick material. It's kind of a rubberized stuff, and they stick it on the body panels, and that deadens the inside of the sound, keeps the rattling down. Bjorn Nyland, for example, just did that to his performance Model 3 in Norway. Just watch his channel, and you'll see what he did. The other thing that Matt is mentioning here is that there is a few Chinese companies that are offering this weather stripping kit that has several pieces specifically for the Model 3s where you can stick it around the doors, acting as a double seal, so to speak, much like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show with my wife's car. My personal opinion here is that's something that I would consider doing if I had a Model 3, because I think it's cheap enough to do, and if it does help keep at least the dust out, because that's one of the issues, without the double seals and stuff, when you open up the doors, you still get dust on the on the door jambs and stuff. Whether it cuts the sound down, there's been several videos that I've seen online where people have done this and they've tested it, and some people are claiming 1 decibel, 0 decibels. Some people are saying 10. It's all over the map. So I think your mileage will vary on this, but I think for the cost of the kit, it can't hurt doing. I will mention that most of the videos I've seen where people put this in, at least at the back doors, because it's a P strip, it's a thicker strip that they put on the backside. It's a little harder to close the back door. I think maybe until the seal kind of settles in or softens up a little bit. So don't be surprised if you put it on and you have to give your door a good shove. It does make the doors sound better though when you go clunk them. Get a good sound. So, anyways. Let's see here. Next question comes from Steve. I read somewhere that Teslas don't use regenerative braking and regular braking at the same time. Is this true, or is it the case when autopilot is slowing down, when it's slowing the car down? My understanding is that it uses a blend, but it's not as aggressive as, say, like a Nissan Leaf. Sorry, Eric. You took me to task earlier for calling it that. Potato, right?
Nissan.
Yeah, that's right. What was the name of that car company there in Gung Ho? Asan Motors, right? We talked about that. Anyways, yeah, so Nissan, also known as Datsun back in the 70s, they use a blend, their one-pedal driving, or their e-pedal as they call it, uses a blend of regenerative braking and physical braking. How much a Tesla does that, I don't know, but there is definitely some braking involved when you do the regen. So if you're traveling fast and you let off on the accelerator, regen kicks in first, and then later on, there's probably a little bit of a blend of braking.
I can dial in that answer a little more precisely. As far as I know, in the Tesla system, at no point when you're one pedaling it do the mechanical brakes engage until there's an emergency event. So if you are on autopilot, or if you're one pedaling it and the car intervenes because it senses about a collision, then the mechanical brakes are engaged.
Well, absolutely, because regenerative braking is not strong enough to stop the car in those situations. So there's definitely braking involved.
So under normal driving, where there's no threat of a collision, you're only ever going to get regen when you back off the accelerator. And you're only going to get mechanical braking when you touch the brake pedal yourself. If the car is on autopilot and it needs to brake quickly for whatever reason, then it's going to engage the mechanical brakes itself. But the two remain separate in normal functions.
Okay. Thanks for the question, Steve. Next question comes from Arvid. He says, do you think there will be a ludicrous software upgrade for the M3P Model 3 performance? Anyways, he says it. Yeah. In Norway, Tesla told some long-range all-wheel drive with performance 0 to 60 kilometers an hour in 3.4 seconds. Well, we talked about this on the show before. We do know that the Performance Model 3 has definitely different drive inverters on it, so there's a physical upgrade that can't be retrofitted. There's probably a little bit of wiggle room they could probably do, but again, I think by this time, because they've done the software updates on most of the cars that have released more performance, more range, that I think they finally, probably at this point, as far as we know, I don't know how much more tweaking they can actually do in the cars. I mean, there's probably a little bit of buffer still left.
Yeah, there's definitely something on launch. Jay Pace and I are convinced.
Oh, no, I agree 100%. On the Performance Model 3, if you've driven a P100D Ludicrous Model S and a Model 3 Performance, that first 20 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, there's a physical difference in how, I don't know if it's software tuned that way, but it's gentler on the Model 3 for sure. But once you get going, I mean, it kicks in for crazy. Right. So.
Oh, yeah. No. It pulls plenty hard once you get past 10, 20 miles an hour. But just off the line, there's that little softness to it. So maybe we're lobbying for ridiculous mode. We don't want
that would be nice.
We don't usurp the hierarchy of the Tesla modes. So you got to leave ludicrous for the big boys. I respect that. But I mean, I'd be happy with a ridiculous mode.
Okay. Well, long live ridiculous mode.
All right,
next question comes from Gabriel. He says, Tesla told me that my car has been rust-proofed at the factory, which carries a 10-year warranty against corrosion, and thus nothing more needs to be done. Do I rely on Tesla's warranty, or is it best practice to bring the car to a shop and apply rust-proofing treatment? This is something we've talked about before on the show. There's nothing wrong if you want to do your own rust proofing on the car, but I've spoken to body shop people that are authorized to work on Teslas. The only thing they say is do not let any of these shops drill into the body cavity in any shape, way, or form. Because of the dissimilar metals that Tesla's using in the car, if you drill into those critical areas, you could be introducing areas of premature corrosion. So get it sprayed if you want. It's up to you. You're not going to hurt anything. but do not let them drill into the car in any shape, way, or form. By the way, all Teslas, actually all modern cars these days, the painting process on these cars is so controlled. The bodies literally are actually dipped in a vat of cleaning fluid first, because you got to degrease it. And in the case of aluminum, you got to etch it. We've talked about this before. And then the whole body is actually immersed in primer. It's not painted. It's actually immersed. It's bathed. So it actually gets inside all the little nooks and crannies and stuff. So when they say they have rust proofing, well, it's primarily the primer and stuff. So, I mean, haven't seen a lot of cars. I mean, Mazdas are particularly bad. If you look at a 10-year-old Mazda, they're full of rust. I don't know what the heck they're doing down there at Mazda, but most cars are pretty good about anti-rust these days. So, anyways, thanks for the question, Gabriel. Hope that helps. Next question comes from Daniel. It says, I just heard about FSD upgrade pricing, and I read through some comments that apparently the price has dropped to $2,600 Canadian back in March. Yes, that's true. It looks like this was all advertised online, but if you don't have a social media presence or follow it often, it seems like you lose it. Will Tesla honor previous pricing in this, given how they advertised it? Well, you have some bit of a respite because the price went back up again, and now it's back down to $3,000 right now, up until August 16th?
3,000 US.
3,000 US up until August 16th. Your best thing, Daniel, is to look in your Tesla account. Whatever price you have listed there, that's what you're on the hook for. I don't think there's any way to be able to get that fire sale deal that they had back in March. Some of us were lucky to get in on it. It's just one of those things. If you're worried about pricing changes and that type of thing, yeah, you got to follow, Elon on social media, pay more attention. But if you don't want to be upset about pricing, don't follow anything. But that's buy your car, be happy with it, stop looking. Otherwise, you just be upset. Tesla's been dropping the prices and increasing prices left, right, and center. They change their stuff more often than most people change their socks or underwear. So, anyways, I hope that helps. But whatever your Tesla account shows is what you're going to have to pay. For now. Again, another public service announcement is now August 8th. By the time you guys listen to this, will be the next day, August 9th. August 16th, the prices of FSD are supposed to increase at least $1,000 US. Call it $1,300 Canadian. So, and they're likely to keep increasing up until somebody cries uncle, I guess. So, whatever. Let's see here. We're getting down. Last three questions. Next question comes from Chase. He says, if ordering a Model Y now does nothing... If ordering a Model Y now does nothing to lock in pricing, is there any benefit to ordering now? Given Tesla's history of starting with initial high prices and lowering over time, it seems wise to wait until volume production starts and demand supplies stabilize. Yes, one could make an argument for that based on our experience with Model 3. I think in this case with the Model Y, the pricing situation, other than potentially changes with FSD right now, if you were to order one, I think the prices are pretty much locked in. Elon did say in the last earnings call that they're hoping to, if they can get their pricing under control, that largely the Model Y will cost exactly what it does on the Model 3. So I think if you buy now, you're protected against any particular price increases. The thing you have to remember about the Model Y is that it's not a deposit like it is a Model 3. You're actually ordering the car in the configuration you want. You're allowed to make changes up until production starts and they issue a VIN, but it's a little different situation this time around because now they're going to, they're using 75% of the parts. They're going to use some of the production line. So if all goes well, they should be able to ramp up fairly quickly on this car. So they're taking a little different tack this time around with the Model Y. So if anything, you might benefit from any price decreases that happen down the road because Tesla's pretty good about that before the car goes into production. If the price decreases, they certainly pass that on to the customer and stuff. So if you're thinking about it, you can order now, but it's probably wise for some people if you got the jitters about ordering first year production of any new car. It's happened to lots of people, including myself. You might want to wait 6 months, a year for them to get some of the bugs worked out. All right, last two questions. Next one comes from Dion. It says, do you think Tesla should start the Tesla network now to get the bugs worked out and to get the data from the vehicles?
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah. FSD is not here yet. Now, they are working. Look, they're using the fleet to train their AI systems. They're looking for disengagements. Whether the robot taxi thing exists today or not, it's not the point. They're actually using the data. They're using the fleet to learn and train their AI systems for the cars. But absolutely, Erica's right. It's too soon to even talk about robotaxis things. Regulation is not even in place yet. They're not even feature complete. Cripes, we don't even have enhanced summon yet, and they've been talking about it for months. So I would temper your expectations as far as that's concerned. All right, last question of the evening, and we can get out of here. It comes from Arnold. Says, if any existing owners purchase a new Performance S or X, do they get free Ludicrous upgrade? Yes. Well, yes. If you were a previous, just before they changed the pricing yet again and the structures of the cars, if you ordered a Model S or an X and you were a previous owner, you would get the free Ludicrous upgrade because they were charging $20,000 US for it. And now that they've changed all the prices, if you buy Performance S or X, Ludicrous is just included. So it was basically a $19,000, $20,000 price drop.
It's like Oprah. Everybody gets Ludicrous. You get Ludicrous. You get Ludicrous. You get Ludicrous.
Well, you know what? Ludicrous, as far as as I understand with these cars, is that I think they're just putting it in all the cars. The hardware, it's a software switch at this point. It's just efficiencies, as far as these cars are concerned. I mean, Tesla's been on this hell-bent thing for simplicity on the cars. They got rid of most of the configuration options on the cars. I mean, you pick a color, you pick a wheel size, you pick your seats, autopilot, yes or no, and off you go. It's dead simple to order a car now. There was a time when you had dozens of different options and stuff, but they've been simplifying so much now that it's like half of the stuff now is all software. I mean, SR Plus cars, they have most of the stuff in it, other than the sound system with the speakers and stuff, and they're mostly disabled via software anyway. So there's some decontenting going on via software, but anyhow, that's all I got. Well, we're in the end of the show. Well, Ian, you want to go first there. Where can people find you if they want to have a chit-chat with you on the internet?
On Twitter, you can find me. For those watching, the handle is right...
Can't read it. Tell us.
Here we go. I know. So it's at Ian Bevelko. I'll spare you the agony. And yes, you can find me also on Tesla Owners Online Forum. The handle there is Mad.
The best place for all stuff. Tesla.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, please. A few people have asked me questions on Facebook or tried to messenger me there. I'm on very, very, very seldom. If you manage to track me down on Facebook, I appear about 3 times a year. Yes.
Go to the forum.
Exactly. The forum is the hot spot. I certainly don't mind if you want to direct message me a question on Twitter, if it's something pointy and something specific, but broader questions, on larger issues. Yeah, let's go to the forum. There's wonder. And I mean, not just me, there's thousands of people on there discussing stuff at any time. It's a huge repository of great knowledge on all things Tesla. So I strongly recommend you show up there. And if you had something specific for me there, then just tag me somewhere and put my handle, Matt Hungarian. I'll be glad to respond. Last thing is, if you are looking for some fine Tesla wear, there is always the Mad Hungarian Evolve Wear shop at teespring.com. And drum roll, please, from one of...
Here we go. Is this it?
Yes.
You sure?
I actually, moments before we started recording the show tonight, I finished the artwork for the Model Y design.
Woohoo!
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, and I was hoping to have it posted up, but those turkeys at Teespring, for whatever reason. I love them. The service has been great. I shouldn't be slamming my vendor, but for whatever reason, they no longer take EPS files, so I wasn't able to upload
How competent that is.
I can convert it for you if you want to send it to me.
I figured I would, throw myself on the mercy of Mr. Page's talents, and we'll get the file figured out tomorrow. So yeah, be on the lookout in the next day or so. Model Y Evolve shirts coming to a Teespring shop near you soon.
Link will be in the video description. You can check out a shop. And as soon as the t-shirt shows up, let me know and I'll tweet it out and we'll get it out to the masses.
Awesome.
Great. Eric, since you're on screen, tell us where people can find you if they want to have a chit-chat with you.
You guys can find me on Twitter. The handle is ECFix. That is ECFIX on Twitter. You can also find me on other places on social media, but I don't disclose those because, I don't One platform is already one too many.
There's too many social media platforms.
Yeah, too many. Listen, I know there's Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and
Grindr.
I can't do this. So many. Can I just be the guy in the room that says, Grandpa, I don't think you understand what Grindr is.
Get off my lawn. All right. Thank you for that, Eric. And lastly, if you want to have a chit-chat with me, I'm very very active on Twitter. The handle's Model 3 Owners. Check out the forum at teslaownersonline.com. The handle there is Trev P. Very active there, keeping everybody in line. And lastly, want to say a great big thanks to our 3 sponsors this evening. That is Fine Lab Ceramic Coatings, the great guys at Duliban Insurance, if you want some Tesla insurance here in Ontario, and our great friends at Evanex for all the Tesla accessories. Those guys have been awesome. Great sponsors right from the beginning. That's it for this time, and we'll have some special stuff going on next week, so make sure you tune in a little bit later next week for some fun stuff that we'll be talking about. So good night, everybody, and we'll talk to you the next time. Thanks for watching and listening, no matter where you happen to be.